soft? What light through yonder window breaks?
It's one of the most famous scenes in Shakespeare, the balcony scene. I mean, how many scenes can you think of that you can just refer to by a nickname like that and everybody will know what you're talking about? But just in case you don't, what I'm talking about is the famous scene in Romeo and Juliet where Romeo comes to woo Juliet while she is standing on a balcony. She's up above, he's down in the garden below. They exchange poetry and sometimes at the end he'll climb up a trellis or something so that they can kiss. It is the iconic image from this play. However, some people argue that this scene, this iconic moment, does not, and in fact, cannot exist. And the reason for that is actually really simple. Technically speaking, balconies did not exist. Right. So let's lay out the case against the balcony scene. First of all, as we've just seen, there's the fact that the English had not yet adapted the Italian word balcone into the language. So whatever else is going on, technically, this cannot be a balcony scene. Second, Juliet is pretty explicitly described in the text as looking out a window. A relevant feature of a window is that reasonably you do picture them as being flat against the facade of a building, not jutting out like a balcony. Also, in theory, I've heard people argue, a window could be at ground level, so she and Romeo are on the same plane, not in the iconic one above, one below position at all. This argument annoys me a little bit. I don't think it's accurate or fair. It's pretty clear from the text that Romeo is looking upwards at Juliet. For example, take his famous early line in the scene.
Soft. What light through yonder window breaks? It's the east. Juliet is the sun.
It's pretty clear from the celestial imagery that he uses as he goes on to talk about the sun being in competition with the light of the moon, that he is looking upwards at Juliet, at a light that is on the same plane in his view as the sun and the moon and the stars. I think this is really important to zero in on because Shakespeare's poetry doesn't exist for no reason. He's not picking images at random. In this case, he's picking an image that helps illustrate the arrangement of the physical stage space. Juliet above, Romeo looking at her from below. So, here's an idea that maybe can reconcile all these things. What about the structure that we now call a Juliet balcony? I mean, the name is a little bit of a giveaway. And there, you can see, it's not a balcony like what we might be picturing today, and technically speaking, architecturally, it is not, in fact, a balcony at all, but it is a very picturesque little window. Juliet could definitely come, set her hands on that decorative barrier, and look very pretty and picturesque. So, problem solved. The Juliet balcony is, to be fair, a lot more like what you would see on an urban house in this period, especially in England. So, the people who are arguing that it should not technically be called the balcony scene are, annoyingly, kind of correct. Kind of. Like, how did we get to this mental image of a window versus a balcony anyway, when they're actually really different? These are pictures, obviously, but the energy of the two scenes, picturing at a window or picturing on a balcony, really isn't the same at all. For example, picture the window version of the scene in space with actual actors performing it. It's really static. Juliet is confined into a tiny area, and by necessity, most of her body is actually still inside of the house. And then you sort of start thinking about practical things like, how is no one overhearing her? Or why does the nurse keep shouting for her rather than just coming to get her because she's standing right there? It gives her room to sort of pose prettily at a window, but not really to do a lot else. In contrast, we have the version on a balcony. Suddenly, there is a lot more space. You can imagine Juliet pacing back and forth, moving forward and then backing away again. And if you go back and read the scene, you'll realize that that's exactly what she's doing. She's making one choice and then turning away from it. She's impulsively moving towards Romeo, then letting logic take over and backing away again. Having room to maneuver is just a better match for what's going on in the scene, which is a young woman who is being tossed from place to place by a torrent of emotions and is trying to find the physical space to work out what she thinks and feels. It's just a better match for the scene, in the same way that Romeo's language points towards Juliet standing above him so that he can compare her to the sun. Juliet's constantly changing thoughts and emotions give us the image of a young woman who is physically taking up a lot of space. But there were no balconies in England, right? Oh, there's one. If Juliet is standing there on the balcony-like overhang that was a really common feature of theater architecture in Shakespeare's time, then suddenly the whole scene works. She has room to maneuver. She can advance and retreat. Romeo can climb partway up the balcony and we don't wonder, how is no one seeing you there? It makes the scene function in the way that we are inclined to picture it, because it's happening on something that is, in all but name, a balcony. I love this scene, in general, but also because it's a really great example of something that might seem a little bit counterintuitive, which is that we can't always work backwards from actual history when we're trying to work out what Shakespeare's doing. Sometimes we have to work backwards from the practicalities of the theater instead. If we turn to architectural history, we find ourselves constrained by the tiny Juliet balcony, the more common architectural feature of Shakespeare's plays, and rejecting a form of architecture that didn't even have a name yet at the time he was writing this play. But turning to the theater, we find something that was a balcony in all but name and gives the space for the scene to actually breathe and work. It is such an important reminder that Shakespeare was writing for the theater, a particular place that doesn't always work the way the real world does, but where the answers to so many of the questions about his plays can actually be found. Thank you so much for watching. I'm hoping to have more videos up soon, so do subscribe, but also leave a comment if you'd like, if you have any questions about Shakespeare, his time period, scenes that you don't understand, and I'll try to answer them in the future. See y'all soon.